that's the feeling of a lifetime. I wish that I could rewind, but we still got right now. Toast to the Savior. Mama said he came into my mess like a manger. Falling for the curves, I was foul to the changer. With no homie, brought me home and out the park is major. So keep going, it ain't over. His love brings us closer. Oh, come and adore the new life here for me and you.
Oh, come let us adore him. Oh, come let us adore him. Kneel right down before him. Adore him. Oh, come let us adore him. Oh, come let us adore him. Kneel right down before him. Adore him. Oh, come let us adore him. Can't wait to make your memories. No stress hanging over me. But God love, let it come from me. All I need is what's in front of me. Yeah, it's a moment I've been waiting for a year. But joy, it brings me to kneel before my King.
Got the joy that you feel inside. I've been waiting all year just to get it right. Yeah, think the angels gon' sing with me. And my baby put something under the tree for me. Yeah, all that frustration, I let it go. Let it, yeah. We could turn missiles to mistletoe. Yeah, we could make family out of foes. It's funny, it take the sun to turn the rain into snow like.
Oh, come let us adore him. Oh, come let us adore him. Kneel right down before him. Adore him. Oh, come let us adore him. Oh, come let us adore him. Kneel right down before him. Adore him. Oh, come let us adore him.
Head bowed, but my hands high. Froze waiting for his time, tell him stand by. He changed the world, that's a landslide. God man for all mankind. I've been waiting for this all year. Got my family and they all here. And they all here. Come and see what we all here.
How do you mend a broken world? Give it a gift it can never earn. Pour out a love that it don't deserve. Send it a sign and a savior. It was a silent night, a holy night. All was calm and all was bright around young virgin, mother and child, holy infant, so tender and mild. Hush, hush, I hear the clouds speak, sing of his glory, singing hush, hush. I see the sky part showing the Father's heart, singing hush, hush. I see the stars bow, heaven is smiling down, singing hush, hush. Making my wrongs right, bringing me life on a Saturday night. On a Saturday night. How do you repay the gift of life? What's the return on his sacrifice?
me stop the music. Hey everyone, I was looking at the wrong timer, so I thought I had more time than I really had. Then I switched over to OBS and I was like, oh shoot, I'm supposed to be live right now. I was looking at Restream, which is like 10 seconds behind, but what is up everyone? I am back, third night in a row. The goal for tonight is we are going to finally finish the build machine from VulnLab. At least that is my goal. Just before I jumped on stream, I did another VulnLab machine called Sync, S-Y-N-C. I started that one late last night, was able to get the user rather quickly, and then tonight I jumped back on it, and it took me 10 minutes to go from user to root. So that machine, much easier than build, rated easy, and I think it would still probably be more of a medium machine on Hack the Box, but it wasn't overly difficult. So if we have time, I'll also show that one to you all as well. But hey, before we do that, let me pull up chat. And we have the one and only DJ BSEC. We got the Tech Man. We got Cyber Nerd Dante. We got another security channel. We got my friend Chris. We got Tabo. Scroll. DJ BSEC said I had a snowball fight on my stream tonight between YouTube and Twitch. Dude, that's amazing. I have no idea how you would do that, but I'll have to check it out. What up, Redefine Reese? Good to have you here. Yeah, Tabo, I saw that. So XCT and XCD, I don't know if I'm saying his name right. He is like one of the top players on Hack the Box, if not the top player, and he is the one who created the VulnLab platform. And after I made my video complaining about build, how it shouldn't be the first machine, he actually reordered the recommendations. I don't know if that's a direct result of my feedback or maybe the timing just lined up, but shout out to him for actually taking my feedback seriously and reordering some of the recommended machines. But we are going to finish build tonight. I believe it. Now, to be clear, y'all, I did this offline. So the first time we did build, this was a few live streams ago, I was able to get the user without too many issues. But once I got the user, I got fully stuck on root. And then we pulled up the walkthrough, looked at the walkthrough, and it was just overwhelming. There were so many things that there's no way I could have done build without looking at the walkthrough, but I'm glad I did it offline. It took me about, I think 3 more hours offline to get to the root part of build, but I learned a lot in the process. So what I want to do is show you all how I did it. So once again, to be clear, I'm not doing this like live. Well, I am live right now, but I'm not like thinking through the process on the spot. I already went through this root part of the machine, and I just want to record it so I can splice the 2 videos together and release a video walkthrough for build. So that's going to be the plan. Before we do that though, I need to get back to where we were at in that machine. So let me share my screen and you can kind of watch me retrace my steps. There's a few things that we needed to do, and I'm also going to move some things around over on my other monitor. And I can also show you guys where we're at with this machine. So for those of you who missed that first stream, I'll show you everything we did to get to user. So this is VulnLab. If you haven't heard of VulnLab, it is kind of like Hack the Box on steroids. The machines seem to be significantly more difficult, but what I love about it, what I haven't even dug into them though, is they have a bunch of standalone machines, both Windows and Linux, but they have Active Directory environments with multiple force that require bypassing modern defenses. There's Red Team Labs, and there's just a lot of good stuff on it. All of it's controlled by Discord, which is cool. If you missed my video, I released a standalone video a few days ago called like VulnLab First Impressions. You can watch that video, get a rundown on what VulnLab is and kind of what you get out of it. But build was one of the first machines that was recommended, but that has changed now since I started going through that. But here is what we covered in when we were getting user. We of course did an in-map scan, and we saw port 22 open, standard SSH. We saw DNS was open. We couldn't do anything special with that. We saw some R shell stuff was open. We couldn't do anything with it, at least initially. We saw Rsync was open, which is what we use to get initial access, and we have GetTIA open here on port 3000. If we scroll down, I can show you like on Rsync what we were able to do. With Rsync, without any authentication, we were able to grab down a backups file. The backups file was actually a full Jenkins config. And in the Jenkins config, we were then able to crack the password, or decrypt the password rather, with Jenkins after downloading it from Rsync, and that gave us the password get1234 for the build admin on the GetTIA instance. And then what we were able to do is we were able to abuse the pipeline, the runner, in order to give ourselves a reverse shell on the Jenkins container. And that's kind of where the first video leaves off. So we need to get back to that point. So I'm going to retrace some of my steps. S-Test said, can you please go through today's Try Hack Me exercise? No, sorry, we're doing this. My next official walkthrough for Try Hack Me is day 17, so stay tuned for that. I was daily streaming Try Hack Me's Advent of Cyber for like the first 6 days, but just didn't feel like doing it anymore. Took some time off from streaming, and I'm way behind in Advent of Cyber, and I don't feel like trying to catch up. So that's what we're doing. Vulnlab. Also, Advent of Cyber, incredible event. Like, absolutely love it, but much more beginner friendly. Like, it's personally, Advent of Cyber isn't challenging for me. The side quest would be, but I'm not allowed to stream the side quest, so I'm not doing the side quest yet. So Vulnlab is very challenging to me, and that's why I'm doing this right now. All right, so before we start recording for YouTube, let's just get back to where we were at. You can see my command there. We'll go ahead, jump over to this, go to the Jenkins file. We are going to edit the Jenkins file. We're going to paste that in. Do I have the hack tools? I do have hack tools. Let's get hack tools pulled up. If you've never heard of hack tools, amazing browser extension for both Chromium and Firefox. That just helps you with a lot of things. So our IP is going to be 10.8.4.163, and we can go ahead and copy this as our payload. I'm going to jump over here to vulnlab build, and we're going to do nano payload.sh. We will paste that in, and that will be good. We'll jump over to here. I'm going to open up a listener on port 8000. And we will change this to our IP 10.8.4.163. Payload.sh should be fine. Let's start our Python listener on port 80. So then it will reach out. It will grab payload.sh. It will pipe it over to bash. And if all works well, it will give us a shell. Wait, what? Hold up. Oh, this is 1337. Okay, so actually I need to change my listener to 1337 like so. And now we can go ahead and do that. So now we have our Python web server listening. This will hopefully become a shell. So we'll just rename the tab and believe it on faith that that's going to happen. The rest of that looks good to me. We will click preview changes, and we will click commit changes. Now, what's going on in the back end is once this happens, there's a webhook that anytime a commit happens, it should run the runner, and this should actually execute on the Jenkins instance. For us, it's going to land us in a Docker container with pretty limited access to things, but that's at least the goal. Now, let me look at chat, make sure I'm not missing anything. Redefine Reese says, I like this Notion workflow. Well, thank you, my friend. I used to use OneNote, then I used Cherry Tree, and now I use Notion. Notion's probably the one I stuck with the longest. I really enjoy Notion. Like, if I go over to my on-prem, you can see all the machines that I've done since I switched over to Notion. And Rsync is the newest vuln one I just did offline before jumping on stream. So if time permits us, I'll create a short walkthrough for that one as well and kind of teach through it since it's fresh on my mind. But here's this one. Hopefully we get back to where we were at, and we also, of course, grab the user flag. Takes 2 minutes, though, so. Breaking Ball says, your THM explanations were great. You may be my new Go on Cyber videos. Well, thank you, my friend. And my intention was to stream all of them, but it was just a lot. Many of you who follow me know this, but I work full-time as a pen tester. I have 2 young kids, an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. I have a wife, and I try to exercise about an hour every night. And the only time I can stream is late at night because I can't stream till I get my kids down to bed. So trying to do daily streaming is just a lot with all of those things going on. But hey, look, we were able to get our shell here. It grabbed our payload, and we have our shell right here. We can just go back out to the root directory, and we have a shell on this machine, but it's quite limited. We don't have access to a lot of tools because it is in a Docker container. So here is where we are going to start recording for YouTube. What up, Hoi Manoy? Good to have you here. Let me grab a drink. And get something set up. Also need to authenticate over to my very good friend, ChatGPT. Is this live? This is live. Welcome. You are watching live, and I wouldn't say in person because it's not in person, but it is live. I am not an AI. which is what an AI would say though. So who knows? Maybe I am an AI. I'm not even a real person. Nobody knows, except for maybe those of you who met me at DEF CON. All right. We will start recording for YouTube. Pebble, we're going to finish the build machine on VulnLab. So for those of you new to my stream, this is when I also make my standalone videos, so it's going to be a little bit weird because I'm going to do a welcome, although I already did a welcome. This is for the people watching after the fact on YouTube. I said that fast, but I say it all the time. Also, for those of you watching live, do want to let you know that you can watch on 3 different platforms. So join on whatever platform works best for you. I am live right now on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitch. On LinkedIn and YouTube, you can just find me under my name, Tyler Ramsby. Over on Twitch, I stream under the name hack_smarter. So LinkedIn and YouTube, LinkedIn and YouTube, Tyler Ramsby, Twitch, hack_smarter. I think I said that right. But all right, here we go. For those of you who were here yesterday, I started doing this and Parrot pissed me off. So we're back to Kali, and honestly, it's refreshing. As much as I'm not a fan of OffSec for the certs, Kali is well designed. It just works out of the box. I do enjoy Kali. But okay, I'm gonna start recording. Hey, this is Tyler from the future. We were going through this machine live on stream and we were able to get the user flag, but I got completely stuck en route. I ended up looking at a walkthrough, felt fully overwhelmed by everything I had to do, and we stopped that stream. But I wanted to come back. I wanted to complete the machine. So offline, I spent about 3 hours figuring out how to get root, and now I'm going to show that to you, and through the beauty of video editing, I'm going to splice everything together. So let me share my screen and pick up where we left off in that first part. So here we are. We were able to get a shell on the container, but we are in a container. We're in a Docker instance, which limits some of what we are able to do. Step number 1 is we want to stabilize our shell. But generally the way that you stabilize your shell is the first step is using Python. But in this Docker container, if we do like which Python, it's not here, and which Python 3, it is not here. So that's kind of the first issue that we encounter. We don't have Python to work with. So step number 1, let's stabilize our shell a little bit. It's not fully stabilizing it, but what we're going to do now is at least give ourselves an interactive shell so we can try things like SSH and things like that, a little more interaction on the terminal. The way that we can do that is with this command right here. We're going to do script qc bin bash and then dev null, and that's just going to give us an interactive shell. It's going to make our job a little bit easier as we begin to enumerate and dig a little bit deeper into this machine. The next thing that we do is if we just lsla, there's not much here. If we go over to the root directory, now remember, we're not root on the main machine. We're just in a container, in a Docker container, almost like a VM inside of a machine or a VM inside of a VM, sort of. It's virtualization. But here we are, and in the root directory, if we lsla, there is this file right here that's going to be important. So if we cat our host.txt, we can even ask. We'll see if ChatGPT can help us out with this and tell us, hey, what are we looking at in this file? So let's ask, what is the purpose of this file? So the R host file is used in systems to support rlogin, rsh, and rexec, which we saw when we did our initial port scan, which are part of the R commands, blah, blah. So these are the host names of remote machines, admin and intern, that indicate that users from these hosts are granted access. This means without authentication, which means if we are able to access the primary host from either admin or intern using RSH, which is kind of like an old version of SSH, it'll give us access without requiring any type of authentication. So this is an important thing to keep in mind as we begin to enumerate the machine, just something I want to draw your attention to. So we'll keep that file in mind, that R host file. Now with that, the next thing we need to do, which is often a post-exploitation thing, is when you get access to a machine, you want to see what is the network information. Now generally you can do that in a few ways on Linux. One is you can do netstat, A&O to see what is listening, but as you can see, on this Docker container, we don't have netstat, which is a common thing you might not have in a Docker container. Another thing you might be able to do to get like your gateway and IP information is you can do IPA or ifconfig. But you can see in this Docker container, we do not have IPA and we do not have ifconfig. Well, one trick that I learned as I was going through the root part of this is you can actually get the network information by reading a file within Linux. And I kind of knew this in the back of my mind. I was aware of it, but didn't consider using it in a Docker container to get networking information. So let's do that. Our next step is to get the networking information of our Docker container, kind of get a lay of the land and figure out where we are at and where we are going. The way we can do that is we want to cat out a file. We're going to cat out proc net route. Now, when we do this, you can see we have some confusing stuff here. What's going on here is we have bytes. We need to split the bytes. We need to reverse the order from little endian to big endian, and then we need to convert it from hex to decimal. That sounds confusing, which it is. Here's the thing. You don't have to do it because we have a good robot friend that can do that for us. So if we just copy this, go back over to my robot friend and said, hey, can you convert this so I actually understand the network info, like so. Yeah, I hit it. I actually tried that when we first got access. I was going to mount and trying to break out of Docker, but it was not successful. All right, blah, blah, blah. It's going to break it down for us. So here's the information that's probably most relevant for us. One is we have our local network here, our destination. We also have our gateway here. So that's some information that we want to consider. And we also have a subnet mask, and this is going to be a /16. So what we can say is our network is this /16. So if we jump over to this, which you can actually see this when I was doing it, but we have this is our network range, and then this is the gateway. And we can jump over to GPT. That explains it to us. So if we don't want to manually do all the craziness to get the IP information, we were able to do that. Oh, Tabo said, good call, Tabo. Thank you for sharing that. Tabo said over in chat, as another tip, when I solved this machine, I used a Linux sliver implant instead of reverse shell, and that gave me all the networking tools. Dude, I need to check out Sliver more. Like, I haven't done much of anything with C2. I do pen testing. I don't do red teaming. So like for pen testing, I generally don't need a C2 server. Even on internals, I can get away without a C2 server most of the time. And what I've noticed on VulnLab is they push C2 servers a lot, especially for the AD chain. So I need to dive into C2 and learn a lot more about that. So maybe we'll do some live streams when I'm learning that. So thank you, Tabo, for sharing that. Really do appreciate it. But here is our networking information. Now, there was one thing that I missed in the first part of the video. In my general workflow, when I'm approaching a CTF, and I'll go back over to my terminal here, we'll just jump that over here. The way I usually approach a CTF and the way I approach this one in the beginning is I use RustScan, and then I pipe whatever open ports are over to Nmap. So I approach this machine by doing RustScan-A, and I did build VL and like that. And what this means is, hey, RustScan, scan this host, and any open ports that you find, pipe it over to Nmap and run the -A command. Well, when I did that, I did not see any ports that were filtered, and that caused me to miss a major hint for this machine. So let me show you what I mean. If you just run Nmap against this machine at build.vl, and we'll just do -V for verbose mode, and we'll let it run. If we just run Nmap, there's going to be two ports that show up as filtered. Right here, port 3306, which is often MySQL, and some type of web server on port 8081. If you only use RustScan and then pipe it over to Nmap, you do not see the filtered ones because RustScan is only passing the open ports over there. Now, I've never had an issue with that in the past when I'm doing CTFs in my workflow, but I had an issue here. So once again, I used to only use Nmap, then I switched over to RustScan. I might go back to just using Nmap, or I'm sure there's flags in RustScan that would allow me to fix that. I just need to read the documentation to figure out what they are. But that was one thing I missed when I was getting the user flag. Once again, are these filtered ports right here. So let's copy these filtered ports and just at least drop them in our notes here. So we have these filtered ports that we missed. Right there, 3306 and 8081. Oh, gotcha. Thank you, Tabo, for the information. So with this, these are filtered, which means from outside of the network. Our Kali VM right here is outside of the network. We're not within it. So when we try to hit these ports from outside of the network, well, they're filtered. Something is blocking us. But what if we try to hit the ports from within the network? Well, we can actually do that. If we go over to our Docker container right here that we have a shell on, we can try to check these ports from within the network with this really cool, simple, but something I haven't actually used before, cat command to check what might be listening on a port. Let me show this to you. If we do cat, And then we're going to do some redirection. Actually, that's the wrong way, like that. And then dev TCP 172.18.0.1. Remember, that's the gateway that we saw. And 3306. You can see when we do that, we're able to see that MariaDB is running on port 3306, and we have access to it from inside of the network. We don't have access from the outside, but we do have access from the inside. Well, let's go ahead and check that other port, 8081, and curl is installed on the Docker container. So that's going to make our job a little bit easier. We can just curl HTTP 172.18.0.1 8081 like so, and -I to see the headers. And when we do that, you can see that there's a Power DNS web server running on port 8081. Now, if we jump back to our initial scans, if I scroll up to the top here, you can see, actually, let me jump over to this one right here. Our initial scans did not show either one of those ports. We don't see 3306 and we don't see 8081. We do see on port 53 that Power DNS was running, but that was just the DNS server itself. When we tried some different DNS attacks, we were unsuccessful, but we did not see that there was an actual web server running that would control the Power DNS server. So those are two new pieces of information that we have for us, but still we're limited. We're in a Docker container. I mean, there's really not much we can do from the Docker container, so what we want to do is set up pivoting. Now, for those of you studying for the OSCP, this is something I would encourage you to lean into, because I know this is something that tripped me up when I was doing the OSCP. Before the OSCP, I just did standalone CTF machines, and I don't think any of them required having to pivot between different networks to get access to like an internal network. Well, you're taught this on the OSCP, and there's multiple different ways that you can do pivoting. You can use SSH for pivoting, you can use Legolo for pivoting, you can use Chisel for pivoting. There's way more than I can even name that you can use for pivoting. But probably the more difficult thing is first knowing a tool, and second, wrapping your head around how you are going through another machine to access an internal network. So let's talk about that. What I want to show you is how you can use Chisel to pivot into an internal network. We're going to set up Chisel on our Kali machine, and we're going to set up Chisel on the Docker container, and then we're going to use Chisel to, well, chisel into the Docker container, so then from our Kali VM, we can hit port 3306 and port 8081. If it sounds confusing, I apologize, but let me walk you through it, and it might make a little bit more sense. The first thing that we are going to do is we need to grab Chisel. So let's open up our web browser, and we will just search for Chisel GitHub. And here it is. And let's go over to releases. And what we want is we want just the binary. So I believe it's going to be this Chisel Linux AMD 64 GZ. So let's go ahead and grab that. And it's already downloaded. We'll go back over to our terminal and we'll CP from our downloads folder, and we will grab Chisel. And there it is. I think this is gunzip. And now we have the binary. Just so we don't have to remember that long string, let's rename it. So we'll rename it just to Chisel, and we'll make it executable, make sure it runs, and it does. Beautiful. But now we need to transfer Chisel to the Docker container. This is rather easy. If you're used to doing CTFs, you're going to recognize this syntax right here. But what we are going to do is set up a Python web server. So we'll do Python 3. You can actually see my command history there, and we'll set up a Python web server on port 80. Back over on our container that we have compromised, we want to grab the Chisel file. Now, we don't have wget because wget is often what you do to download a file from a remote computer from Linux, but we do have curl. And with curl, we can do this similar process. We just do curl HTTP. We're going to plug in our IP -10.8.4.163. We're going to grab Chisel. We're going to do -o for an output file, and we'll just call it Chisel as well on the Docker container. There we go. LSLA, you can see that we have Chisel right there. We'll go ahead and make it executable. And then finally, let's see if it runs. And it does. So we now have Chisel both on the container and on our Kali VM. So back to our Kali VM. Let me show you how we can set up Chisel for network pivoting and forwarding and proxying and all that fun stuff. So back on our Kali VM, here's the command that we are going to run. We want to, of course, run Chisel, and we're going to say we are the server. We're not the client, we're the server. Think about your Kali VM as like a C2 server, a command and control framework. We are the attacker, we are the server, we want to take that traffic. So we are the server. We'll do reverse, and then we'll do a port, and we'll just do port 54321 like so. And there we go. We have our server listening. Now let's jump back over to the Docker container, and we also have to use chisel here. So we'll do chisel like so, but the Docker container is the client that's going to connect to our server. So instead of server, we're going to do client. Then we're going to put in our IP. Mine is up there. So my IP is 10.8.4.163 like so. And then 54321 for our port. And then we'll do it over the socks. And we'll background it as well. So then we can just continue to use our Docker container. So we have this set up. I'm just going to rename this as Chisel. You can see that we have the connection set up, our session 1. We'll change this to terminal. And now we need to modify our socks. What's the file called? Etsy socks proxy config thingy. I'll show you it. If we do sudo nano Etsy proxy, there we go, proxychains.conf. That's the file I'm looking for. And we just need to go, I believe, down to the very end of this file. Think I'm right. Yeah, so it's just at the end of this file, and we're going to change this. Actually, we could keep it almost the same thing. All we're going to do is call this socks5 and 127.0.0.1 and 9050. I'm pretty sure that is the correct syntax, and we will go ahead and save that file. Now, if all worked correctly, we're able to hit the internal network. And let's see if I did this correctly, because there's always a really good chance I didn't. So let's go ahead and give this a shot. I think it was on this Gatia tab that I was doing this. So we have port 3306 on this one. So let's just see if we can see if that port is open. We will do proxy chains -Q just for quiet so we don't see it doing everything. Nmap, we want to hit that one. And we'll do port 3306, hit that host, and then -V for verbose mode. And it shows as closed, which means I definitely did something wrong. Let's see if I can figure out what we did wrong. Config file, everything seems to be working. Let me check over on my Chisel config. We're listening on port 54321. We have 9050 for socks proxy, so that should work. Going over to my shell, we have our client connected latency. I'm pretty sure this is how I did it. For those of you in chat, how did I find port 3306 at this point? It is filtered. So if you actually scan it with Nmap from your attack machine, you see that port 3306 and port 8081 are filtered. But for those of you watching, what did I mess up about my proxy chain? I thought I did that right. Socks5, 9050. What? Maybe I am just cursed and I'm not supposed to complete this machine on stream, because I'm almost certain this is the exact process that I did. What did I do wrong? Chisel, reverse port, shell here. So Tabo, I ran into that issue, my friend. Well, first, I just want to see if the only reason I'm using Nmap through proxy chains is to see if proxy chains is working. But you actually can't use an Nmap binary on the container. I tried this offline to speed up the Nmap scanning process, and the container doesn't have Etsy services or anything like that, so it fails when you're trying to run Nmap. There are some ways that you could bypass that, but I didn't feel like wasting my time trying to bypass that. But, guys, I'm pretty sure I did everything right here. I'm just double checking my work real quick, looking at my command, looking at my IP. This should be correct. But it's not. something isn't working correctly. Okay, let's just redo this process, shall we? Okay, so we're connected back here. What is going on? It's clearly connecting. But we're not actually able to hit the internal IPs here. Okay, this is odd. This is very odd, y'all. Yeah, it says connection refused because I closed it. I closed Chisel. I reopened Chisel. Thinking I did something wrong, but... Let me think for a second. Maybe that's all it is. Hold up, let's try this. Nope. So guys, the reason I'm not troubleshooting that much, I'm literally copying the exact way I did this offline. I did not do anything different than what I'm showing you right now. And it works. So now I'm trying to think, could we... I'm trying to think of a different way that we can do this. I have some ideas. Okay, give me just a second. If at first you don't succeed, we figure it out again. Dang it, why does it ask me for a password? What? So, yeah, that's what I want to do is SSH port 40, but for some reason SSH doesn't seem to work with this machine, like as far as connecting to it. I do not know why. Because I tried this initially. I think that I just need to say, hey, I completed this machine, which I did. Like, I got the root flag and everything. And just give up. Like, why does it not work? Even if I grab this key, it doesn't work, which doesn't make any sense. Like, I can grab this key and try to SSH with that, and that doesn't work either. Okay, 1 second, guys. Chat's going fast. Oh, shoot. Freaking A. Guys, we're not doing build. I'm not showcasing this machine on stream. It's clearly cursed. I'm not going to do it. I am making the official decision right now. This machine will not be finished by me on stream. I'm done with this machine. I had the same issue yesterday running the weird issues. And I'm sick of doing this stream or this machine. I'll show you guys, like, I literally did all of this offline and recorded every single command exactly how I wrote the freaking command. So you can see this. Like, I literally did this exact process and then fully compromised the machine and got the root flag. But for some reason, every time I try to do the freaking build machine on stream, it doesn't work. So we're not going to do the build machine on stream anymore. For my own mental sanity, we're not doing it. Okay? Instead, we're going to do a different machine. Give me just a second. I'm going to switch some things around on my end, but I don't like that machine. I mean, I learned a lot of stuff when I did it, but I don't understand why when I stream it doesn't work. It's user error. I know that. Like, I know computers don't just randomly change, but I literally, guys, copy and pasted every single command I used into Notion and then copy and pasted it again before I got on stream to make sure it worked. And now when I'm on streaming trying to do it again, all of it breaks. So screw the machine. We're not doing it. Instead, we're going to do sync. I just need to flip some things around. Give me just a second, guys. Oh, and Table said, by the way, if you use the sliver implant instead of chisel, I need to figure that out, but I'll probably do that offline. You guys don't need to watch me bang my head against my keyboard figuring out how to use sliver. But I will eventually do that. And I think, like, for those of you, your only exposure to VulnLab has been seeing me bang my head against my keyboard trying to do build. Don't judge the rest of the platform based on that machine, because, like, this next machine I'm going to show you, I was able to do everything without any help or hints. Like, I was able to figure it out, and it took me from user to root like 10 minutes, and it's rated as easy, and I think that's a good rating, but you still learn some stuff in the process. So don't judge VulnLab based on my experience with build. The overall platform looks really cool. Build hates me for some reason. Let's grab a drink. All right, need to start up this machine. I'll eventually share my screen. I know I'm not sharing it right now. All right, before we start recording, I'll answer questions. I've just joined Try Hack Me. Is it worth the premium? Yes. What do you think of VulnLab versus Hack the Box so far? I don't think I can probably give a fair judgment. because I've only done 2 machines on VulnLab, and I've done a lot more on Hack the Box. What I can say, and this is mainly based on the community, and actually let me show you guys some comments so you can see this for yourselves. Give me just a second. Can I zoom in? So here's kind of the philosophy. I want to make sure I'm not showing anything I'm not supposed to show, which I don't think I am. Here's the philosophy of VulnLab, right? So this is XCT, one of the top players in Hack the Box and the creator of it. He said, just to add something regarding difficulty on VulnLab, nearly all machines, including the easy ones, have some element that will throw you off and require researching things a bit. It will be rare to solve something easily without having to learn something new. That's fully intended because otherwise I see no point in solving anything, which I appreciate it. And if you remember my first video when I gave you my initial reaction to them, they have a very strict guideline on all machines that are submitted need to be realistic. No CTF-y stuff, no stupid freaking puzzles with steganography and an image with an SSH key. Like none of that crap, but realistic stuff, which I really appreciate from them. So I don't know for sure, but I think VulnLab might become my new favorite platform for standalone CTF machines. Just based on my experience with the platform, but also with the community itself. When I joined the Discord community, there's so many people in the community that are super helpful, super nice, and like, I don't know for sure because I don't know XCT personally, but I think he may even have received my feedback. And in my first video, I was like, guys, please don't put build as the first recommended machine because you're going to get people to judge the entire platform based on build. And it was like the next day, he made an announcement saying that he rearranged the machines, added some machines, and rearranged the recommended order of doing machines, and build is no longer first. So I don't know if that was based on my feedback or not, but if it was, just based on the fact that they were willing to change something like that from the feedback of some noob dude streaming stuff, I really appreciate that. So I think the platform seems to be really well done and realistic. It's going to be a stretch for me. Like every single machine is going to be a stretch for me. I'm going to hit roadblocks. I'm going to hit walls, but I'm going to learn a lot through the process. So I want to literally work through every single machine that they have on the recommended path, then dive into the AD chains. I'll try to showcase a lot of them on stream, but I don't know for sure. Time will tell. But I have a feeling VulnLab will be my new favorite platform for standalone CTF machines. Okay. Let me get this pulled up now, and I'm almost ready. All right. Close out the madness that was chiseled that I was trying to do. How does VulnLab compare to Hack the Box in terms of difficulty, realistic? It's more difficult, but also more realistic, I think. It's definitely more difficult. Like, I would say a VulnLab easy machine is more of a Hack the Box medium machine. And so a VulnLab easy machine would probably be like a Try Hack Me hard machine. Maybe. I sent you my write-up of build using Sliver if you want to give it a try. Dude, you're amazing. Thank you so much, Tabo. I will definitely give it a try. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Build strikes again. Watch. I'll do it offline, Tabo. I'll have everything working. And then I'll have a stream where I'm like, all right, guys, in this one, we're going to complete build. And then like Sliver's going to fall apart. Everything's going to break. But we'll still try it. But okay. Let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to start recording for YouTube. So for those of you new to the stream, this is my live stream, but I also make my standalone videos for YouTube while we're streaming. So we're going to make a walkthrough video for this machine. So I'm going to start recording. Welcome the YouTube people, and we'll dive into things. Hopefully you guys learned something in the process as well, but here we go. Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another video. My name is Tyler. We are going to dive into the machine called Rsync on VulnLab. Now, if you've never heard of VulnLab, it's an incredible platform with standalone CTF machines, both Linux and Windows, but also Active Directory chains and big red team networks that require doing like EDR evasion and some other craziness. It is created by XCT, which is one of the top players on Hack the Box, and I'm really enjoying the platform. If you missed my video, I made a first impressions video about VulnLab. Well, in this video, I'm going to give you a detailed walkthrough of one of the machines called Rsync. This machine is rated as easy on VulnLab, but it seems that VulnLab difficulties are a little more difficult than other platforms, so this would probably be a medium on Hack the Box, maybe. But I enjoyed it. I was able to do all of it on my own. And also, one thing different about this video, often when I make these videos, it's me doing it completely blind. I did do this machine offline. So I'll still try to show you the things I struggle with and the things that cause me to stumble, but I'm probably going to do this a little bit quicker than you, not because I'm a better hacker than you, but literally because I already did this machine myself. But I would encourage you, if you have a sub to VulnLab, do this machine right alongside of me. Once again, it's Rsync, S-Y-N-C. And I will guide you through the entire process, guide you through my thought process, my methodology. We'll take our notes together, and this will be like an entire hacking workshop as we dive into this machine. So without any further ado, let me go ahead and share my screen, and here we are. The first thing we want to do is let's add it to our Etsy host file. Actually, the first thing we want to do is let's make a file for it. And I think I did. I'm just going to make one for YouTube here, and we'll go over to the YouTube folder, and now we'll make a directory for Rsync, and we'll CD over to Rsync. And now we want to add Rsync to our Etsy host file. Now, if you're new to Linux, Etsy host just resolves your domain names to your IP addresses. So if you think about like your phone, when you call somebody on your phone, you don't need to remember their phone number if they're in your contact list. You type in their name. So if I typed in like DJ BSEC, it would automatically pull up his phone number, so it resolves it. That's kind of what Etsy host does on a Linux machine. Just got a shout out from Australia. Thank you, Micah. But let's go ahead and add this to Etsy host. So do sudo nano Etsy host. We'll jump down to here and we'll enter, drop in our IP, hit tab, and we'll do sync-vl for VulnLab. We'll go ahead and save it, make sure we're able to ping it, and we are able to ping it. Now, step number one is to do a scan. Let's see what ports might be open. Now, I did run into an issue on build using Rscan, but I think it's safe to use Rscan on this machine. So we'll go ahead and do Rscan-A. You can actually see when I was doing this, and we'll pass it over to Nmap. But let me explain what's going on here. What Rscan is going to do is going to scan, well, let me hit enter and then I'll explain it. Rscan is going to scan every open port on sync.vl. So on that host, let's see what ports are open, and any port that's open is going to pass over that port to Nmap to run -A on with Nmap. And -A and Nmap is just saying, hey, I want you to throw all the enumeration scripts at it. Let's see what is running on each one of these open ports. While we're doing that, let's switch over to our notes. I already set up my Notion notes right here, but we will begin our notes. So let's make an H1 header, and we'll just call this our Nmap scan. We'll make a code block, and we'll drop in our Nmap scan here. We'll change it over to bash. All right, back over to this, and you can see our scan is already done. So we'll go ahead and grab these open ports like so. Switch over to our notes, and then I like to space them out so we can see them a little bit better. I'll also zoom in a little bit so it's not so tiny for all of you watching on stream and watching after the fact. We'll go ahead and make this wrap code, and here's what we have open. We have port 21, which is going to be FTP. We have port 22, which is going to be SSH. We have port 80, which is going to be a web server. And we have port 873, which is going to be Rsync, which is all good. Let's go ahead and begin enumerating these. So I'm going to go ahead and make a header, and we'll just call this like FTP enumeration. And when FTP is open, one of the first things to try is if you can log into the FTP server as an anonymous user. Maybe there's some sensitive information there, so let's go ahead and check if we can do that. We'll open up our terminal, we will clear this, and we can do like FTP anonymous. We'll just do, yeah, well, anon at sync.vl works as well. So FTP as the anonymous user there, and nothing for our password, but we get permission failed. So anonymous access is not allowed, and we will add that to our notes. We'll just say anonymous access is not allowed. So if we find creds, let's come back to this. And we'll just drop in our screenshot there. Now, for those of you who want to get into pen testing, one of the best things you can do is get into a habit of taking good notes. The way you see me take my notes when I'm doing a CTF is the same way I take notes when I do pen testing for my day job. And honestly, I think what sets apart a good pen tester from a bad pen tester is good pen testers know how to take good notes, both for the report, for communicating with the client, and also just for remembering where you picked off from one day to the next. So here we go. FTP enumeration, anonymous access is not allowed if we find creds. Let's come back to this. The next one is SSH, and with SSH, there's a few things we can check. One is we can just see if password authentication is enabled. Now, it's best practice when you have an SSH server to only allow key-based authentication, because if password-based authentication is allowed, especially if it's internet-facing, you open up the SSH server to potential brute force attacks and password spraying attacks. So let's just check if password authentication is enabled on the SSH server. It's super easy. We can just SSH as root at sync.vl, and it says failed, but this actually fails because I shared before, I recently did this machine. So let me just clear that out. And now we'll try our SSH command again. We'll say yes. And you can see permission denied public key. What that tells me is it does not support password authentication. Does not support password authentication, which is good security practice. If this is a pen test, you don't want to support password authentication, and we'll drop a screenshot in there. Let's look at our other ports. We have a web server on port 80, so let's go ahead and do some web server enumeration. So we'll just do HTTP enumeration. And when it comes to a web server, I always like to make a to-do list before we dive into things, because there's so many different things to check. And I've noticed for me, I have a tendency to kind of fall into rabbit holes, forget what I was supposed to be checking, and then miss things. Especially for those of you who are studying for the OSCP, that's a big thing you need to avoid. And one of the best ways to avoid rabbit holes is create a to-do list and set a timer for yourself. So give yourself like 40 minutes, and if you don't get anywhere, jump to the next thing on your to-do list. So let's make a to-do list. If we have a web server, we want to say our to-do list would be, we'll do dir search for directory brute forcing. We'll do vhost fuzzing for any potential virtual hosts that might be on the machine. We'll check source code, and we'll just browse the website. So let's go ahead and get some of these scans running. We'll open up our terminal, and we'll just change this over to dir search. And we'll do dir search /u. You can actually see my syntax here from before. The cool thing about dir search is you don't really need to pass it a word list. As a built-in word list that does a great job, I would say 99% of the time, and we will go ahead and run that. The next thing we want to do is do some vhost fuzzing, but I always forget the syntax for checking for vhost, so I actually made a little script in my GitHub. And I'll show this to you. You're welcome to use it or modify it and make it your own. But if you go to github.com, I'm thinking of YouTube, but github.com, Tenebrain93. This is my name on GitHub. There is me, obviously. If you go to offensive security here, and I have a vhost fuzzer.sh right here. So you're welcome to just steal this yourself if you want. But all it does is does the syntax for ffuff, because I always forget the ffuff syntax for fuzzing for vhost. I don't know why I'm so terrible at remembering that, but I am. So we'll just call this vhost fuzzer, and we'll nano vhost fuzzer.sh, paste that in, make it executable like so. And if you do -h, you can see the syntax for it. So let's go ahead and run it. Our domain is going to be sync.vl. Our word list, we can do dirbuster directory list 2.3 medium.txt. Our URL is going to be sync.vl. Our FS filter, we don't know what it is, so we'll do 1. And you can see we got all those results. FS just means filter by size. We can see non-existent vhosts have a size of 1392, so we can change it to 1392 and let that beast run. So we have dir search running, we have our vhost fuzzer running. Now we can begin looking at the website itself, and I like to use Kaido for that. So we'll open up Kaido. If you've never heard of Kaido, it's a web proxy auditing tool built from the ground up in Rust, sort of like Burp Suite, but more affordable. And the free edition doesn't rate limit you on a bunch of crap like Burp Suite Community Edition does. We'll create a new project. We'll call this Sync for YouTube, and we will do create. Now from here, we can go over to Intercept. We can open up the built-in browser, close that, and let's see what is running on this web server, sync.vl. And we are just given a username and a password. So we can try admin, and we'll just grab this response with that, drop it over to here, hit replay, and we get an OK response, invalid username or password. We can try just a few like basic things, admin password, invalid username or password. We can try like root. Let's see if there's any common passwords we might be able to get access as. And there isn't. But every time, let me close out this. Every time I see a login form, there's always a few things I want to check. Specifically, I'll show this to you. We'll say on our login form, I like to check for username enumeration. I like to check for SQL injection. And I like to check for NoSQL injection. Now, for username enumeration, this is actually something you can report on a pen test if you're able to script it out. We don't know a valid user. When it comes to doing an actual pen test, though, what a client will usually do is it will give you users that are in scope. So then we know for sure, like, Tyler would be a valid user and not Tyler would be an invalid user. If you log into an application, you get a different response from the application, whether or not the username exists. That's actually a valid finding. It'd be a low finding on a pen test report, but a valid finding. Applications' best security practices is it should always be a generic response whether or not the username exists. You shouldn't give an attacker the ability to discern whether a user exists. Another way you can do username enumeration is based on the time that the application takes to respond. So I'll just show this to you. If we type admin and Tyler, and if we go over to intercept, log in, I think Kaido does this as well. And it does. So I want you to look down here. Actually, my face is covering it. Let me move my face up. All right. So down here, you can see the response time of 1225 milliseconds. If we do it again, we're around 1225 milliseconds. Now, let's say we use the username, not a real user, and hit send. Let's say our milliseconds were significantly larger or significantly shorter. Depending on how the web application is processing the login request, even if the response is generic, you might be able to discern a valid user based on the response time. So that's kind of a cool bug bounty trick I'll give you, or a pen test trick I'll give you. I've had quite a few times where I'm doing a pen test on a web application, and the response is generic, saying invalid username or password, but by looking at the response time, I can use the response time to discern whether or not the username is valid, and that is still a valid username enumeration finding that you might find on a pen test or in bug bounty. Let me move my face back down there. So that's something we would check. Since we don't know if a user is valid, it's kind of hard for us to test because I don't know if admin's valid or if not a real user is valid, but that would be something to test on a login form. For SQL injection, this is quite easy to test. When we do admin for our username, you can see we get a 200 response. A very simple way to test for SQL injection is just put in a single quote, like so. And if it's vulnerable to SQL injection, we might get a weird error message. We might get a 500 error, and we will click send. And you can see right there, we do get a 500 internal server error, which is like a smoking flag that this is vulnerable to SQL injection. Let's go ahead and grab a screenshot of that with Flame Shot, and we'll drop that in our notes. Like so. We'll highlight our single quote right there, and we'll highlight the 500 error, Control C, jump over to our notes, and we'll say potential SQL injection there. And we don't need our screenshot to be that big, so we'll make it a little bit smaller. And I don't know why Notion doesn't automatically left align my stuff, but we have potential SQL injection. Now, if you know SQL injection, there's a lot of things you might be able to do. You might be able to dump databases, but you might also just be able to bypass authentication via a simple payload. And we can actually do that in the GUI. If I turn off queuing here and we jump over to the GUI, let's try a basic SQL injection bypass. And that's going to be a quote or 1 equals 1, so it always validates it true, and then that and anything we want for a password, and we'll click login. And you can actually see we're able to bypass authentication. Welcome admin here, so we just bypass auth using SQL injection, and we can go ahead and save that to our notes. Whoops, we'll go over to our notes, and we'll say confirmed SQL injection auth bypass. And our payload that we used was or 1 equals 1, like so. And there we go. Confirm SQL injection, our HTTP enumeration. But looking at it, It doesn't really do much. We don't have, I think, any functionality that I see. If you guys see anything in chat, let me know. But there's not much functionality here. I mean, things I would test for if this is an actual pen test, if we could modify our name at all, anytime your name is reflected on a login screen like that, I've had, once again, quite a few times where I'm able to get SQL injection by modifying my name. I would for example, if I wanted to get SQL injection, I would modify my name and I would begin my name with this closing paragraph tag and then do a script tag. We might be able to escape this and execute JavaScript there. So that would be something that would be interesting, but that's about it that really stands out to me. That would be user controllable as a user, but in the context of the CTF, that's probably going to be out of scope. So if we jump over to our notes, we have confirmed SQL injection, but there's not much we could do. We could, of course, try to dump databases, but before we do that, let's just continue to move on. And this is a big help for those of you studying for the OSCP. The OSCP is notorious for rabbit holes. You might find something like this that seems like, hey, this might be the way in, but if you don't get anywhere after a short amount of time, jump to whatever the other ports are open, and then if you're still stuck, you can come back to this and continue to enumerate. I need to grab another drink of water. I'm doing a lot of talking. All right, let's jump to our notes. What other ports do we have? We have Rsync on port 873. So let's check that out. Our Rsync enumeration. And one good thing for this is Rsync hack tricks. Let's see what hack tricks has to say about Rsync. Why does this look so weird? What's this domain? boydetech.com.br? That's not the normal hack trick site. Whatever. Has the same information from what I can see. So I says, hey, here's some banner and manual enumeration. So we're going to run this. You receive this banner, then you send the same info, then you can ask the server to list. And we saw a similar thing on build. Oh, Tablo said, speaking of rabbit holes, I solved this machine, but it's the first time I saw the web interface. I never opened it. That's funny. All right, well, let's go ahead and try this ourselves. I'll open up our terminal. We can probably stop our vhost fuzzer. It didn't find anything. Did dir search find anything? And no, dir search didn't find anything either. Go terminal. And let's try this. So it's netcat vn, and it would be, we need to ping it first. What's our sync.vl? That's the IP. So netcat vn 10.10.100.111.873. And then we're supposed to copy this. Right, copy, paste, and then list. And you can see we have, it looks like a web backup here. So now we're able to actually see what might be in here. So we can do rsync like so, av, list only, just because we want to see what might be in here. And let's grab that 10.100.111 and HTTPD like so. And so we can actually see the PHP code here, the server-side code for dashboard, index, and logout. We have some migrate stuff, and we have what appears to be a database. So the database is what is most appealing to me. Let's go ahead and download this and see what is going on here. We can do rsync, av, I believe, I'm going off memory. I think it's rsync, yeah, av, rsync again, and then we're going to grab the IP, 10.10.100.111, like so. We can do HTTP, database, site DB. You know, we can just download all of it, I think would work just fine. Let's see if this works. Tyler, Vulnlab, YouTube, sync like so. Okay, cool. LSLA, and you see we have all the information here. So one thing we can look at is our database. And if we check the file, sure enough, it is a SQLite database. And we can use a few different tools to look at this, but one command line tool we can use is just SQLite. So if we do SQLite 3 like so, and do site database, now we have access to the database. Now if we do help, we can see some usage information. but you could also just ask ChatGPT how to use this. I just happen to know how to use it. So if we do tables, we can see with tables, we have a users table, and we can even look at the schema, like the schema of the users table, and we have an ID, a username, and a password. So now we can just say select everything from users, and we have 2 users and their hashes. Admin and Tris, that might be worth saving to our notes. So let's jump over to our notes, and we'll say we downloaded a web backup with Rsync, discovered a database, and then found hashes of 2 users. Like so. All right, let's continue to enumerate what's in this folder, though. Is it exit? Okay, I'll go like that then. What's in migrate? Nothing's in migrate. Oh wait, that's from me. That's from my dir search. Ignore that. Let's go to www. And here's the PHP code. So we could cat like dashboard. I believe dashboard was dashboard. No, I think index was the login, wasn't it? Dashboard is after you logged in, I think. Yes, you can see it's echoing out our username there, which I think that would be vulnerable to cross-site scripting. But its index is the login. So look at this. Actually, let me not talk for a second. And Tabo can't answer this either because he completed this machine. Does anything, here, let me scroll down a little bit. Does anything stand out to you guys about this? For those of you on stream. On YouTube, you're watching, so, I mean, you're watching after the fact. But just take a second to look at this and see if anything stands out to you. Jeez, dropping my water. I'm not seeing any comments. Is anyone watching? We have over 70 people watching, so surely someone sees something. The flag, no, not a flag. But we do have this secure thing built into PHP. And you can see in our post request right here, we're saying, hey, if we're passing the username and password, and then look at the hash that it's comparing against. It's an MD5 hash, salt, username, password. So it is actually hashing in the database itself. Like if we want to crack this password, we need to use the salt. The salt in the hash and the username is how we end up cracking this password. Now, I shared before, guys, I'm not going through this live right now. I went through this machine offline, which is not something I normally do when I do a video walkthrough. But this is one part that took me a little bit to crack. And I'll share with you a few things I tried to do. The first thing I tried to do was use Hashcat. So what I tried to do initially is, well, let me go ahead and grab this, our salt right here. And we'll go over to my notes and I'll show you what we try to do, right? So here's our salt. So it's an MD5, but it's salted. So I thought, what if I make some custom hashes? So let's just say hashes. This is what I initially tried to do. I tried to do salt, like so, and then took like one of the hashes, like so, and I tried to crack this, because if you go over to Hashcat, we jump out, we'll do nano hash.text. If you do hashcat-h and you grep salt, you can see right here we have MD5, and it says it accepts MD5 salt and then the password. So that's what I attempted to do. Was I figured Hashcat with mode 20, when I put the salt in there first and then the password, that would work. But now I think I realized what I maybe did wrong. Maybe I need a single dot and not how I have it. I wonder if that would work. Hold up. Was that my issue because of how I set it up that way? That just stood out to me just now. Let's try that again. Hashcat-m20 hash.text user share wordless rocku.text. Okay, no. All right. Separator unmatched. Okay, I'm wrong there. Let me try that again. This is how I try to do it. I thought for some reason I had to do the salt that way. And you can see it gets exhausted. And I tried a few different things. I then tried to put the pass first and the salt first, because if you look at hashcat-h grep salt, there's mode 10, I believe, is just putting the pass first and the salt first. Suffice it to say, I couldn't get to work at first until my good friend ChatGPT explained to me what was going on and helped me create a script. So I'll show you the script that I ended up creating alongside of ChatGPT. If you go to my GitHub, you can check it out, but you can try this yourself. Like ChatGPT or any really AI can probably create a very simple script for this. If we go over to my repos here, I have a repo called CTF scripts. When I create custom scripts for CTFs, I drop them in here, and I created this script right here. We'll grab it, copy it, go over here. We'll do nano hashcracker.py, put it in here, and I'll just open up a mouse pad because it'll be a little easier maybe to see. So here's the script, making sure my face isn't blocking anything, which it's not. I'll make it bigger for you all. It accepts the salt. You just had to put in the salt. You have to put in the username, which apparently I don't know how to spell. The username there. You have to put in the hash to crack. It's going to use rocku.text by default. But then what it's going to do is going to generate the hash using the salt username and password, compare it to Rocku, and see if we're able to find the password for each one of the users. So let's go ahead and give this a shot. If we go back over to our notes here, let's first attempt the admin one. So we'll grab the admin is the admin's hash. The username is admin. And the salt is this, and we'll drop in the salt there. All right, like so. We'll go ahead and save that, and we'll do Python 3 hashcracker. We'll give it a second, and it says password not found. So let's go ahead and try our other one. We'll do that. I think it's Tris, and we just need to update the hash for Tris. Copy that, go over to Tris, update the target hash, save. And look at that, almost instantly we find the password Gerald. Why not just prepare a hashes file? I don't know, because this is how I ended up doing it. And it was quick, right? Like, here it is, one little script alongside ChatGPT, and we were able to find the password. So we have the password for the Tris user. Let's go over to this, and we'll say Tris compromised. All right, we have that. So then Tris's password is Tris and Gerald, like so. Now, remember, when we were looking at this, we could try revisiting FTP. We couldn't do SSH though. You might think, hey, we have a username and we have a password. Surely we can connect via SSH, but remember, SSH here does not support password authentication. We need key-based authentication. We would need Tris's private key in order to get SSH access. But remember when we looked at FTP, we first tried anonymous access. It did not work, but I said, hey, if we find creds, let's come back to this. So let's go back to that. Let's give that a shot. We'll do FTP, and you can actually see it there. FTP Tris at sync.vl, and our password is Gerald, like so. And you see we now have access. And it appears we are in Tris's home folder. Now this is interesting. We don't see like SSH stuff here, but can we write files to it? Let's find out. If we exit out, I'm just going to touch hello.txt. And then I'm going to re-FTP access. Can we put hello.txt in there? And sure enough, we can. So we're able to write files to Tris's home directory. Well, what do you think the attack path might be? Those of you who are watching online, let's see, we have almost 80 of you, which is, what? Do you guys not have lives? Why are 80 of you watching me on a Saturday night? I appreciate it, but apparently I'm not the only one who doesn't have a life. Good to have you here. Pebble said, upload SSH key. Yes. Yes. You are spot on there. So kind of, we need to upload a public key and then we'll use our private key to authenticate. Let me show you how we can do this. If we make a directory, .ssh, go into SSH, we have nothing there, but let's exit out here and let's go ahead and touch authorized keys and let's cat out my public key. You can see it right there, and we'll throw my public key and authorized key, and then I should be able to SSH as the Tris user. So we'll echo this, into authorized keys, and now we'll FTP again as Tris. We will do Gerald as our password. We'll CD over to SSH, and then we will put authorized keys in there. All right, it's there. Exit, SSH is Tris at sync.vl, and boom. We have SSH access, ladies and gentlemen. So we can maybe jot that down, kind of the steps that we did. We'll jump over to our notes, and we will scroll down, and we'll say, from here, we noticed the FTP access was in Tris's home folder. We created a SSH directory and then uploaded our public key to authorized keys, providing us with full SSH access. All right, and now we can start a new one. We'll say post compromise, and we can begin looking around and figuring out what is going on this machine. We do LSLA. We don't have a whole lot of interesting information here. We don't even have our user flag. Grab another drink of water real quick. We're not watching, we are staring at you. All right. Now, the key to doing post-compromise enumeration is manual. Now, you can use linps, and I'll probably showcase linps later on, but in my experience, when I get access to a Linux server, especially like in an Active Directory environment, which is just recently, I was able to get access on an internal network to a Linux machine. The Kerberos authentication was set up, an admin logged into the Linux machine, and I was able to see the Kerberos ticket after elevating my privileges to root and then authenticating to the domain controller with domain admin privs, all from Linux. So a lot of that, though, is manual enumeration. I get access and I just explore. What permissions do we have? One thing I like to do is sudo-l, and we can't run anything. I use the password Gerald or whatever her password is, and we're not able to run sudo on that. We can check ID to see if we're in any interesting groups, and we are not in any interesting groups. We can check capabilities and things like that, but from here, I just like to explore and see what is going on. So if we go back out to the root directory here, one thing I always go to is var, and I go to www, and nothing here. Often, when you get access to a machine, you might be able to find some type of credentials or a config stored in the HTML folder right here, but we don't have anything here. Oh, Tablo said there's an unintended straight to root from here, but the unintended path is really cool. I don't know the unintended, and I'm assuming I did it the intended way when I did it, but I'll have to figure out what the unintended is. But I will show you all what I think is the intended way. I have no idea. But when I did this myself, this part's relatively easy going from here to root, at least in my opinion. I looked at my timeline. If you look at Discord on the Vulnlab Discord, you can see when you get user and when you get root, and it took me about 10 minutes to go from this point to the root user. I'll of course slow down and explain what's going on, but that's what it took me, about 10 minutes to go from here to root. The other thing we want to do is go over to home. LSLA, you can see we have a few different users that we may want to compromise. We have Ubuntu, probably just a default user there. We have Tris, who we're logged into. We have an SA user. We have Jennifer, and we have HTTPD. But let's jump back over to var, because this is what I did when I was doing it offline. And I thought, which one of these might be interesting? So I thought, hey, let's look at backups. And we have nothing there. Do we have anything else here that we might want to look at? Not really. Go back to this. We do have this area right here, which isn't normally there. We have backup. Let's CD over to that backup. And we have a bunch of files here. What we can try to do is unzip them. So we'll just try to unzip, like, we'll just pick this one. And also what this tells us is there seems to be some type of cron job running every 2 minutes. And it actually has password and shadow in there. Let's, instead of unzipping it here in this directory, we don't have write access to this directory, but what we could do is copy that file out to somewhere like temp, and then CD over to temp, and then we have that file, and let's unzip it here. And now we have password and we have shadow. Now, okay, for those of you new to Linux, password sounds like a place where you store passwords, and it used to be way back in the ancient days of Linux. They actually used to store passwords in the password file, but not anymore, because all users have access to the password file. If we do cat etc password, you can see we have access to it. But where the password used to be stored, there's an X right here. Right? So there used to be a password there. It's no longer there for security purposes. Instead, the password is stored in etc shadow. But only the root user has access to etc shadow. So if I cat etc shadow, you can see I get permission denied. But it was being backed up here. So if we go over to temp, right there, CD backup, LSLA, we can actually cat shadow. And you can see what shadow looks like. It gives us the user, and then we have the user's hash. It's not their clear text password at all, but it's a user's hash. Is this vulnlab? Yes, coder. This is the machine sync on vulnlab. Nefos, you are incorrect. You have to watch the beginning of the stream. But we are doing a new machine here. And you can see the root hash right there. So let's go ahead and copy this. And we'll add it to our own machine. We'll copy. And we'll change this to terminal, and we'll do nano shadow. And we'll also grab the password one. Like so. All right, make sure I'm not missing anything in chat. I'm gonna grab another drink. All right, now we can hopefully attempt to crack some of these hashes. And the way we can do that is I don't actually know if you can use hashcat, but you can use John. And the reason I don't know if you can use hashcat is if we cat out password, and actually let me change this over to SSH. I like keeping my tabs named, just the way my brain works. Actually, I wanted to cat out shadow. There we go. I believe this is yescrypt. Am I saying that right? Yes, because does hashcat work for yescrypt? Let's see. Was it ever approved? Three weeks ago. Like, I don't think hashcat actually supports this, so you can't crack these hashes with hashcat. If I am wrong, either in live stream, let me know, or those of you watching this video afterwards, let me know if I'm wrong there, but I'm quite certain you can't. But we are able to use John, and I'll at least show you the syntax for using John. We'll do sudo John shadow. You can see my thing here from when I did it before. Format crypt. Now shadow is just the file, right? I just named it shadow. That could be anything. Format equals crypt, and then wordless, and then of course we can use rocku.txt. Type in our password. Oh, you know what? This might not show it, because let me move shadow. From when I did this previously, it's stored in John, but I want to show you the full cracking process. Let me see if I rename it, if that will work for me. No, okay, so maybe I just need to use John show. Oh, what is it? Show. What's the syntax when you've cracked the password? Isn't it show? Oh, you can. I did it before. Oh, dash show. Thank you. Oh, no. Okay, so it didn't work. Let's just run it then. I was thinking it was storing it from before. Although it says 0 password hash is cracked and 0 left. How do you clear out John? Let's find out. Oh, do I need to unshadow? I don't, We might actually need to unshadow it, although I don't think I did. Yeah, you're right. I think I do need to unshadow. Here, let's fix some stuff. Let's move our shadow back over to shadow, and I think it's, is it John? Or is it just unshadow? Hey, there we go. Yeah, there's the syntax. I think we just do that. Unshadow, password shadow. I think that's will work. Do I need to save it again, or will it just automatically save it in shadow? Let's find out. Okay, no, maybe I need to actually save it. Ignore me, y'all. Oh, whoops, wrong command. All right. Text format equals script, wordless equals user share wordless rockU.text. Okay, no, I don't. Yeah, Tabo said I didn't unshadow. I didn't unshadow either. This worked right away when I did it. Offline, of course. Offline. I wonder why it's not working now. I'm like 99.99% certain I didn't unshadow it. And it worked no problem. Let me actually check. If I cd. One of those strange things where I'm literally copying and pasting this from my notes on how I did it, and it's not working. Something is going on here, y'all. And we'll see if we can figure out what it is. You don't need to unshadow it. I'm 99.99999% certain you don't need to unshadow it. Just try this. Yeah, I don't think Vulnab likes streams. Oh, there we go. Now it's working. Okay, we got one user's hash cracked, or password. Maybe I just had to delete my .john file for some reason. But there. And this is not the unshadowed one, just to be clear. For those who might be following along in the future, you do not need to unshadow it. And we were able to crack some hashes out of shadow. Let's go ahead and drop that into our notes. We found a backup file. Oh, let's... My VM's going to die, guys. I can tell you those are the only 3 passwords it's going to crack, but my PC's going to... My VM's going to die. We found a backup file that stored Etsy shadow. And, whoops. We're able to crack some hashes. All right, so we have SA, Sakura. Jennifer has the same password as Tris of Gerald. So let's go ahead and do this. We'll go over to SSH, and let's first switch to Jennifer. And if we go to home, Jennifer, there is the user flag. I'm not going to show you the user flag though. I encourage those of you who want to do this machine on VoneLab, I just showed you all the steps to get to this point, but do it on your own. So all you have to do from here is cat user.txt and you'll get the user flag, but I'm not going to show you the user flag. Now the other user that we compromised was SA. So from Jennifer, I did spend some time enumerating as Jennifer, but there was no good information that I was able to find that would allow me to do anything. So I very quickly switched over to the SA user. And then from here, I went over to temp and I used linp. So let's go ahead and use linp together. For those of you who might be new to CTFs or Linux privilege escalation, linp is a tool that automates a lot of the checks for privilege escalation. What I have on my machine right here, if we cd, I think it's in my home file. Just in my Kali machine, I have a web server where I'm slowly putting tools that I use all the time so we can quickly transfer them. So let's open up this. We'll set up a Python web server, go over to this, and we'll do wget at my IP 10.8.4.163 and linps.sh. Go ahead and make it executable, and we will run it and see what we are able to find. We're getting near the end, ladies and gentlemen. I'll ignore Josie's question. But no, I'm married. But it's a very odd question to ask on YouTube. And I have a feeling, I don't know if Jose, whoever might start trolling, so I've turned off chat. I can still see your guys' chat. I just turned it off from the main screen, so if there's any silly trolling going on, it doesn't show up on the YouTube video. But here we go. We're running through stuff. I believe it's getting to the end. And we can scroll up and look at some things as well. See if there's anything interesting that we find. TP files, LDAP files, right? Nothing too interesting yet. Yeah, nothing too interesting. All right, scroll. We have backup files, which maybe would have showed us before the backup file. Files inside others' home. Nothing too interesting. We have backup and root, so that would be something that should cue our interest a little bit. And now this should really cue our interest. You own the script user local bin backup.sh, and knowing that backup's also in root, and we saw that backup being created, and Etsy shadow is in that backup, one might think we could abuse that. So let's go ahead and add that. We own the backup script, question mark. We'll drop that in there, and let's see what this script is. We'll just copy this, and we'll cat it out. And it matches up what we saw. So what this script is doing is making a temp backup, and then it's just backing up the web server, but also backing up Etsy password and Etsy shadow. Now the fact that it's backing up some of these Etsy files or some of these system files tells us this script is running as the root user. Let's go ahead and copy this and add it to our notes. Like so, and let's do this. Let's copy from user local bin backup.sh and let's put it here in temp. Oh, there it is, backup.sh. Just in case we break something, then we can easily restore it. Now from here, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do. If we can modify the script that runs as root, you could get a reverse shell, you could add a root user, but I want to just show you a rather simple way of getting this, but also show you another privilege escalation method you might run into on something like the OSAP or on various CTFs. And that's by modifying the Etsy password file. We've seen that a few different times. I told you that passwords used to be stored in Etsy password, but now where those passwords are, there's an X. Well, if we can modify Etsy password, we can remove the X and then log in as any account without knowing the password. So let's try that. Let's go ahead and do nano user local bin backup.sh like so. And we can go ahead and it says the directory is not can't be edited, but we can edit this entire script. We can just delete all of it. If I was smart, I would know how to select all in nano, but I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. And let's just do this. Very easy prevest. Let's change mod 777 on Etsy password. So it's world readable and world writable. It's already world readable. And then let's just do like, hey, when this happens, let's touch temp and we'll call it hacksmarter.txt. So then we can modify, or we can monitor the temp directory. And when we see hacksmarter.txt, we know that we are legit hackers. Now, another tool I want to show you, not really needed for this, but it's a tool called Process Spy. If we go to Process Spy GitHub, really helpful tool for CTFs, or even, it's Control K to delete it. Really helpful tool for CTFs, or even when you do like CVE research, you can monitor what's being passed from a web app onto the system, but you can monitor Linux processes. So like, for example, if there's a cron job that only runs as the root user, we can't see it ourselves by checking cron tab, but we can use Process Spy to see what might be running. So let's do that. wget 10.8.4.163. I already have it in my web server. Process Spy 64. I think like that. Make it executable and run it. And this is just going to monitor all the systems or all the commands that run. So if there's any command that runs every couple of minutes, we're able to see those cron jobs without having access to like the root's cron jobs actual files. We can see what's running as processes with Process Spy. I've even seen this before where a process is passing credentials on the command line. So it might be the root user running a command, passing the credentials on the command line, and with Process Spy, we can actually grab those credentials and then log in with whatever permissions those credentials are being passed as. So we'll let this do its thing. In the meantime, we can probably close this out and let's SSH in as Tris again. CD over to temp, and we can monitor this as well to see if hacksmarter.txt is going to be created. So you have to create to the web server you create in order to connect SA machine user LinPiece. Yeah, just because this machine doesn't have access to the internet. So like my Kali machine is kind of like the internet for it. And look what just happened. We have my commands running there, right? You can actually see the commands I'm running, but we have this being ran as the root user, the backup script being ran. So I bet if we check temp right now, we have hacksmarter.txt, and now I bet if we do lsla on Etsy password, it is world writable. Now, privilege escalation is as easy as doing nano, Etsy password, okay? See our root user up here? Just delete the X. That means, hey, root, we're deleting your password. Go ahead and save that, and now watch this. I am now the root user. We can CD over to root. And we can cat root.text. I'm not going to do it for you. I want you to get the flag on your own. But then we have successfully got root privileges on this machine. So this was the sync machine from VulnLab. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Like I said before, I was able to do this entire machine myself with no walkthroughs, and from user to root took me about 10 minutes or so. But I would say if you're comparing this to something like Hack the Box, this is definitely more of a medium machine on Hack the Box or like a hard machine on Try Hack Me. But really am enjoying VulnLab. I learned something new every time I make it through one of these machines. This time what I learned was that cracking hashes with salts. I don't think I've ever done a CTF where I had to actually crack a salted hash that way. So I learned something in the process, as well as a few other of the enumeration type things. So hey y'all, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me for this, and I will see you in the next one. All right. Now I'm just on stream with you guys. So Neff was to answer your question about build. Dude, that was my plan for this stream, was to complete build, and for some reason it didn't work again. Although I was copying and pasting my commands, and I tried it, I kid you not, I did it offline before on this VM before jumping on stream, and the same exact commands didn't work. So I have just determined I completed build myself. I got the flag, it's done. I'm not going to attempt to make a video walkthrough for build. It's clearly not meant to be there, but I can't wait to do that on YouTube when you upload it. Yes, I will get that uploaded ASAP. I shouldn't have to do much video editing at all. Yeah, change the mod on bin bash would be another way to do it. All right, y'all. There's a bunch of you. This is crazy. Like over 80 people hanging out with me. I don't know the makeup between the different platforms. Can I check? Let's see. Oh, almost all of you are on YouTube, it looks like. We got over 60 people on YouTube, 20 on Twitch. Hey, y'all. Let's see if we can find someone to raid. Let me see if there's anyone streaming right now. Some hacking content. And I am the only one. All right. Well, maybe we can still find someone to raid. I'm looking at Twitch right now. Does anyone have any raid suggestions on Twitch? QQ Impact. Let me see who that is real quick. All right, cool. Let's raid him. Hey, for those of you watching on YouTube, if you could do me a huge favor and come join me on Twitch so you can be part of the raid. You don't need a Twitch account or anything. You just need to watch on Twitch. Let me turn down this audio. I can't talk while hearing another person talk. Come join me on Twitch, y'all, so you can be part of this raid. The raid, if you do have a Twitch account, you can chat. When we do the raid, we need a raid phrase. Our raid phrase is hack smarter, not harder. Once again, hack smarter, not harder. Everyone, come join on Twitch. We have 80 people overall. Let's get all 80 people on Twitch. I know that's not going to happen, but I want to give you all just a second to join Twitch before I set up this raid. And when the raid happens, if you have a Twitch account, you can chat. The raid phrase is hack smarter, not harder. Let me get this raid set up real quick on Twitch. For those of you on YouTube, I don't think there's raiding, so you guys will just be signed off. But thank you, everybody, for taking the time to hang out with me. We've been on stream for how long? Almost 2 hours. Cool. All right, let me set up this raid. All right, come join the raid. The raid is set up on Twitch. Once I do the raid, I will sign off. So thank you all again for hanging out. I will see you all in the next one.